Sat Sri Akal. I, Avneet Singh, welcome you all to this interesting episode of PCC Trustee Connect. PCC Trustee Connect is an exclusive, candid conversation with the minds behind Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, our trustees. Today, we are in conversation with Mr. Indy Samra. Mr. Indy is also the co-chair of New Jersey chapter and he is one of the board of directors of PCC. Indy is a private wealth advisor and financial market commentator with Samra Wealth Management. His work covers a full range of issues related to wealth management, including investment strategy and portfolio construction, trust and estate planning, taxation, and exit strategy formation, as well as insurance planning. Friends, as we all are aware of the geopolitical tensions continuing to shape the global economy and anticipate further monetary tightening, a majority of the World Economic Forum's community of the chief economists have expected a global recession in 2023. According to annual projections released by the World Bank Group, following a year of accelerated inflation, worsening financial conditions, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the global economy could face a recession and one of the weakest paces of growth on record in 2023. Why not hear more in detail from the expert? Thank you, Indy, for sparing time out of your busy schedule.
Avneet, I want to thank you, as well as the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, for having me on today. I look forward to an engaging dialogue.
For our listeners, we would like to know, what is a recession?
So it's important to understand that the definition of a recession differs across borders. Here in the United States, some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitutes a recession. And while that may be the textbook answer, it's not the real world definition of a recession. In the United States, recessions are declared by the National Bureau of Economic Research. Their definition emphasizes that a recession involves a significant decline in economic activity that is spread across the economy and lasts more than a few months. On a global level, recessions are declared by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund.
Indy, like you just mentioned, that the definition of a recession differs across borders. So it means that not all recessions are the same.
Correct. Not all recessions are equal in terms of the cause, duration, depth of contraction, and the policy tools available to navigate out of the recession. For instance, the COVID recession, this was intentional. Global governments deemed it necessary to safeguard their citizens and implement lockdown measures. As a result, you had US GDP contract 5.1% and 31.2% in the first 2 quarters of 2020, a swift decline followed by an economic boom, resulting in a short-lived recession. When you think about it, the world of finance and economics is a lot like the world of medicine. There are many moving parts and many variables. Now, when the average person thinks about a recession, they'll attempt to use financial market benchmarks. But it's important to understand that recessions focus on a nation's economic output and not on portfolio returns. It's also important to remember that recessions do not impact all sectors and geographic areas uniformly. And also, what may have been considered a recession in the past may not necessarily be considered a recession now or in the future.
The most important question: what are some indicators to suggest we are heading into a global recession, and should we be concerned?
There are a number of indicators, including a decline in real GDP, that is gross domestic product adjusted for inflation, decline in real income, in employment, in industrial production, in retail sales. But there are also other indicators, real life examples that many folks may not think about. Now, if your listeners would visit the St. Louis Federal Reserve website and search for consumer loans, credit cards, and all revolving plans for commercial banks, the current balance is at an all-time high, deeply concerning as key interest rates continue to climb. Similarly, using the same website, search delinquency rates on credit card loans at all commercial banks, you will see a rapid change in trajectory, similar to 2008.
Are you suggesting that we are headed for a recession? If so, how deep of a contraction?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, you have to think about the cause of a recession, and timing is everything. Similar to how global governments created a recessionary environment with COVID lockdowns, central banks are attempting to fight inflation by hiking key interest rates, essentially the only tool in their toolbox, at least on the demand side of the equation. Before I answer the question, I do want to state that recessions or economic downturns are not necessarily a bad thing. By the time we figured out that we're in a recession, the government and central banks implement a number of stimulus measures and monetary easing, creating economic opportunity. So I'll attempt to answer this question in two parts. First, for the United States, that tends to be a first mover. Do I think we're heading for a recession? Well, although a number of firms, including Disney, Amazon, Yahoo, have announced layoffs, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics recently announced that there are 11 million job openings, and the unemployment rate fell to 3.4%. It's difficult to suggest that we're heading into a recession with such a strong labor market. Our research actually points towards a rolling recession, essentially an economic slowdown in various sectors at different times. As a result, no recession is declared, as select sectors continue to experience expansion while others experience contraction. Now, internationally, there are additional factors: a strong dollar impacting trade relations, the Russian incursion into Ukraine, natural gas supply in Europe, and don't forget about COVID. In my opinion, I believe Europe is likely to experience recessionary conditions. However, this could be avoided from a change in weather patterns, reducing dependence on natural gas, or a government mandate forcing employees to work from home, reducing the need for domestic travel and unnecessarily wasting energy. In Latin America, I believe in the near term, we're likely to see a continuing slowing of inflows into the region. With India's Adani crisis and China's spy balloon, we may see some impact in the near term. However, with discounted oil from Russia and a growing skilled middle class, I believe we may actually avoid a recession internationally, and these economies could provide great opportunity.
Indy, earlier you mentioned recessions are not uniform. How deep of a contraction are economists predicting, and what sectors do you expect to sustain the impact?
Although the risk of recession and probability of interest rate hikes are being priced into equity and bond markets, it is my belief that any recession would be shallow and swift, and we could be looking at either a rolling recession or a double dip recession, where we have one recession followed by a short expansion, followed by another shallow recession.
That is a real cause for concern. What would be the worst case scenario?
It may be difficult to believe, but there are communities in this world that have not recovered from the last recession, and I'm not talking on a global level, but even here in the United States. And for this example, I'll focus on the Great Recession and not the technical recession caused by COVID lockdown measures. During the Great Recession, you saw small businesses without the needed resources to survive an economic downturn, essentially replaced by the Walmarts of the world. While there may have been great years in the stock market, it is unlikely that many of the inhabitants of these towns participated, further exacerbated by social migration trends. Inhabitants essentially leaving to explore better opportunities elsewhere, impacting real estate values.
What advice would you give the entrepreneurs listening in today?
Times of economic downturn provide opportunity. Focus on the changing landscape and determine if your business should evolve given the new climate, or if you should pivot into a new business.
Thank you, Indy. Friends, that was Indy Samra, who gave us a well-led information on understanding the global recession, and also that are we really heading towards it, and how concerning it is for all of us. ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ ਵਕਤ ਕੱਢਿਆ. For regular updates and information, stay tuned to www.punjabichamber.com, and don't forget to follow us on our social media handles. For feedback, you may write to avneet.singh@punjabichamber.net or reach out to me at 918283848012. Sat Sri Akal.